You lot voted for him, and so he has returned. Luthor Strode, now back and improved with a new look. And this comic is going to be different because it starts out different. It starts out with the story of love. I know, right? A book that centers around murder and killing starts out with love. But yes, it really does. Welcome back to Luthor Strode, and this is the legacy of Luthor Strode. Enjoy. We pick up our story with the one man in the field. In his hand, he's wielding the jawbone of a tiger or a jaguar. I cannot really tell, but it has been fashioned into a weapon. Standing before him was an armada filled with soldiers, mercenaries, warriors, grown men fashioned for war, fashioned to take life. But this man was just bored. He looked at them and knew instantly what he had to do, which was dismantle this army with his bare hands and his jaw. When he was done with his work of art, the fields were filled with red. Everywhere was covered in red. Looking up to the sky, he was still bored. So he went home, back to his lonely tent. He was so bored and uninterested in everything that he had nothing to do but rest. On his way, he washed his hands of all the blood. Without even looking up, he realized that he was not alone. Someone was here. He was surprised because usually people are afraid of him, especially because he doesn't hide what he's capable of. He's a weapon of war. But she was different. She was not like any other woman he had ever met. They spent a night of passion, but the next day he was in chains. The next day he was supposed to push 2 pillars down, and he said her name, Delilah. That was a long time ago, but now in the present we follow Petra in a cop car immediately after the massacre that happened in the mall with Jack the Ripper. She made it clear that arresting them was a mistake. Not only are they innocent, but this arrest was pointless, and the cops found this funny. How is this pointless? We have you handcuffed, and we have your boy imprisoned. But she said not for long, because you don't know who you have imprisoned. Back in the car with Luthor, we see him surrounded by cops, and he was in chains, covered in blood. It was quiet, too quiet, because they knew what he was capable of. Every single police officer in that room was terrified. One of the cops was losing his mind. He had to be told by his superior to chill out, but he couldn't. They had shot this guy before, point blank range, but he's okay with no injuries. How? And why in God's name is he so quiet? They were all wondering, and he just said, I am listening. And they asked him, listening for what? And he made it clear, the bridge. Instantly, he broke through his chains and caused an accident, causing traffic. Petra was loving this because she warned them. The cops stopped their car wondering what happened, only to be greeted with the freaking door right in the middle. They had survived only because Luthor could aim really well. Realizing the prisoner was free, they opened fire. But Luthor had a bulletproof door as his shield. Picking up a helmet, he used the helmet to take out one of the cops. Direct hit to his face. He was out cold. The second, however, was going to get punched. But Luthor remembered that he's just human. So he flicked his head, knocking him out with a single freaking finger. Freeing Petra, they were about to escape, but they were surrounded by cops wielding guns. So Luthor asked his shorty, do you trust me? And she said, of course. Jumping on his back, he dived from the bridge straight into the water. He was gone. But that took place 5 years ago. Right now, they were on the run. We see a vast forest and CDs linked up to form a target for someone to use to aim. And the person was really good at aiming. Petra had apparently been practicing, and she became good. But Luthor was still very sneaky, and he snuck up behind her. This hulking behemoth was now a nice guy. No more the demon Luthor we're used to. He was in no way, shape, or form a pacifist, but he was not going to kill unless he extremely needed to kill you. And now he had the love of his life. They shared a moment, but Luthor came with news. Picking Petra off the ground, he had to tell her something important because he had a newspaper. And on that newspaper, they find out there was a massacre. It's been 5 years, but now they had a job to do. And Petra asked him if he's sure, because this can be just any psychopath, but he knew this was his kind. And she celebrated. Finally, she gets to kill people. Petra was one of a kind. Rummaging through her weapons box, she asked Luthor what's the plan, and Luthor simply said, we go to the city and follow the blood, because they always kill and leave it messy. We then see in a cafe that one gentleman looking guy was eating a steak, and the person who cooked the steak had his guts on the table. He was supported by another black woman sitting next to him in a room full of corpses, but their dinner was rudely interrupted by one person, Luthor, and when he came, they said, oh, you. He simply took a seat, looking them eyeball to eyeball, and said, yes, me. They smiled. You have come to stop us, have you? He said, yes. They asked him again, do you think you can? He smiled and said yes. In a brief conversation, they exchanged blows in their minds because they were all the same. Part of their skill sets was being able to predict the future, and now they were predicting the combat, and it was lovely. But Luthor wasn't here for that. He made it clear he doesn't want to fight, but they made it clear they love to kill, that they love to fight. They are with the smoke, and they are ready for it. Luthor simply sighed and moved his chair a little to the left because he had a plan. Even if he didn't like killing, his shorty definitely did because she busted his brain spectacularly with a headshot. Luthor was disappointed at the bloodshed, but he knew this was the only way to stop them, and he knew what came next. Tossing the chairs aside, it was time for combat. She launched a chair at Luthor, but he was ready. But her target wasn't Luthor. Her target was Petra, his one weakness. But Luthor wasn't going to let nobody hurt his baby girl. She launched in the air, ready to kill Petra, but he grabbed onto her hair, pulling her and binding her, telling her, you do not have to do this. But she smiled. Yes, yes I do. While this was going on, Petra was getting the hell out of there because she knew what this girl was capable of. Luthor told her to go. Shorty was as fast as Jack the Ripper, but Petra had a bike, and she was out of there, flipping this girl off as she drove. Luthor failed to bind her hands though, because she grabbed on his family jewels and pushed him aside, telling him he's pathetic, and running after Petra, because even if you're on a bike, I will still catch you. Just as Jack the Ripper made it clear, you cannot run from us. Luthor was fast, but she had the distance. He knew he couldn't catch up, but Petra had experience with his kind. She shot at her. She knew Shorty could dodge bullets, but she only shot at her so she would miss her head, causing her to land on the wrong spot. Petra was out of there. She wasn't playing, and Shorty wasn't playing too because she jumped on a FedEx bus, coming directly for Petra. You die today, for real. But Luthor was not going to let that happen. He was hitching his own ride, you would think. Nah, big man wanted to be Superman. He jumped on someone's hood and launched himself. He was flying through the streets, hoping to catch the FedEx truck, but he missed. You would think he would die, right? Nah, he slammed into the ground, and the shockwave was so strong, he shook the FedEx bus and Petra on the bike. He wasn't done. Grabbing onto his sports car, he just looked at the driver and said, drive faster. He was trying to catch up to the FedEx truck, but Shorty was not going to let that happen. Jumping through the driver's seat, she smashed his skull in. Shorty was violent, very violent, causing an accident. She launched herself off the truck, and Luthor simply caught her and tossed her to the side, landing safely on the floor, because he wasn't going to let nobody hurt his babe. He tried to talk to her. He tried to explain, I don't want to do this. We could stop this right now, but she really wanted to kill him. Petra stopped her car and came flying back. Luthor explained that he doesn't want to kill her, and she smiled, saying she knows. You don't want to kill me, but I want to kill you, so I win. He smiles. I don't want to kill you. And Petra's bike came flying through. Luthor simply snatched his girl and tossed her in the air like a Disney princess, catching her. Forgetting mid-battle They were literally in the middle of a battle. But thankfully, he was Luthor Strode. He protected her. Tossing Petra to the side, he picked up Shorty and slammed her head straight through a wall. But he caused the driver to be distracted. But he wasn't going to let nobody die on his watch. Running for the truck, Shorty ran too. But Luthor was too quick. He was out of there, and Shorty was in the driver's seat. While Luthor was running on the side of the truck, she accepted her fate because Luthor was just stronger. And Petra, she had to watch the truck explode, thinking Luthor was on it. But she knew he was always right behind her. He couldn't help it, embracing the love of his life because both of them survived this battle. But they were not alone. Standing right next to them was freaking Delilah. Oh my god.